this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is a video to compare two premium webcams, the Logitech Streamcam seen here on the right and the Elgato Facecam. These are both expensive premium webcams designed for streamers and content creators and people wanting to capture fantastic quality audio. They're both expensive but both deliver fantastic visual quality. And I'll show you what I mean by that a bit later on in the video. Now, I've unboxed and reviewed both these cameras separately, but I wanted to talk to you about the various different features of them and some of the specifications that make them interesting, as well as the highlights and lowlights of both. The Streamcam has been around for a while, and the Elgato Facecam has just launched. The Facecam is particularly interesting because it has an Elgato prime lens with an f2.4 aperture, a 24mm focal length, and an 82-degree field of view. It's also got a Sony Starvis sensor, and it's basically designed to give a really premium high-quality capture at 1080p 60 frames per second using USB 3 high bandwidth connection to your PC. So it does deliver a really good visual capture quality. It also comes with some software that I'll show you later on in the video that allows you to tweak the camera settings and save them directly onto the camera, which is really nice. And it works with Elgato Stream Deck, and I'll show you that too. As you can see, this is a much larger camera than the Streamcam, and it's quite imposing in that way. Quite a chunky looking thing, but it does have very nice large lens. And the thing that makes it interesting is it has a fixed focal distance, so it will focus on you around the room, whether you're right close up to the camera or quite away from it, and it delivers a really good capture quality from that. As you'd expect, it comes with a little mount to let you mount it on top of your monitor quite easily. It also has a privacy shield that you can attach and detach on a whim, so it allows you to cover that up when you're not using it. It is also, as you've seen earlier in the video, mountable on a tripod or a grip or anything like that. You can obviously use it with Elgato's own mounting systems, or you can use your own, and I have demonstrated in the unboxing video a number of different ones, and it's really easy to do. It unscrews. Both cameras have a standard thread for that, so you can do the same with the Streamcam as well. I think it's worth highlighting that. Now, one of the things I was struck by when comparing the two is the weight difference, which is an interesting highlight. The Facecam feels a lot lighter in the hand than the Streamcam. It feels quite lightweight, and when you consider the technology that's going in there, including the sensor, the cooling capabilities in the lens itself, and just the sheer size of it, you'd think it'd be quite weighty, but it's actually quite lightweight. And so that is interesting when you get to mounting it. It is also very flexible. Now, as a USB-C connection on one end and USB-A on the other that plugs into your PC, as I said, it requires USB 3 for high bandwidth connection because of the quality of the footage it delivers. It is only a 1080p camera at 60 frames per second maximum, but it does deliver really good quality, high bandwidth video capture, and it has some fantastic settings that allow you to tweak it and to get it looking great, and I'll demonstrate that a bit later on in the video. Or as you'll also see, it is really flexible in terms of how you mount it and the sort of turn and twist and tilt of the camera itself, so it's really easy to get into the right position and to move around. It has an 82-degree field of view, which is wider than the Logitech, which is at 78 degrees, so it can see a lot of your room and capture a lot of you. Now, the Logitech Streamcam, by comparison, is, in my mind, a slightly better looking camera. This is obviously going to depend on your personal preference, but I think it's a really nicely aesthetically designed bit of kit, a very premium white finish to it, and it is quite heavy as well, which sort of speaks to the build quality. That does have a downside though, actually, because the Facecam is lightweight. It's easy to manipulate around without fear of it toppling off, whereas the Streamcam sometimes feels like it might just fall down. However, it is very sturdy, and it does come with two connections. You can see this one here, for example, that allows you to mount it on a tripod. It also has a USB-C connection, which is worth bearing in mind because it doesn't use USB-A, so you do need to make sure you have a USB-C port on your PC or you're going to come across a problem. Now, the mount also is capable of switching it between two different positions. It can go into landscape or portrait mode, which is interesting because it means that you can just flip the camera and it automatically change the orientation of the video capture. This is obviously useful if you're doing things like recording footage for Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, which requires portrait footage, and you don't want to mess about with changing the settings in your software in order to get that into the right position and to be able to do that. So to be able to just flip the camera around is really convenient, and then you can flip it back to landscape and use it for 16:9 video capture footage, and you can do that on the whim. So it's interesting to have that at hardware level, and it makes it certainly curious, but you can see just the size and shape and difference of them. They are obviously both mountable on top of your monitor, or you can put them on a tripod or a stand, and so you can get them into the position you want them to be in quite easily. Now, it's worth noting that both cameras out of the box don't look amazing, and obviously this is going to vary depending on your experience, but my experience was in my room without much lighting, and I just plugged them in and the default settings didn't look that great, but you can tweak the settings quite a bit within the software. Here I'm demonstrating what they look like just plugged into a laptop with no software on it, and the sort of visuals that you get out of that. And then I'm going to go into the software and demonstrate what you can do and the tweaks that you can make to really improve things. So now we're in Camera Hub, and you'll see a number of different settings on here. You'll notice you can choose from your cameras, and I obviously only have one face cam at the moment. But you can adjust the zoom and things like that, so you can have a digital zoom, which obviously loses quality. This is a 1080p camera, but you know, zooming in is obviously going to lose some of that quality and degrade that, especially under low light settings. You can also do things like adjust all the different settings on saturation and other bits in here, so we can change some of this up. So as default, it looks okay, but this, you know, make a couple of changes and suddenly I look a lot nicer. I've got a really good quality to me, and maybe that's actually a lot nicer, isn't it? That's a really good quality picture now. It looks fantastic. I'll zoom in and you can still start to see some of that digital problem, but if you keep it zoomed out and crop it in OBS or something, then you can get a better quality. You can also go into the exposure and you'll see what difference that's made, but you can see that you can manually change it in sort of a way like the ISO settings like you would on an actual DSLR camera. So ideally with that you want to keep it as low as possible, so we go for 100 ISO because that makes the picture a lot crisper, and that is how you would do it on a proper camera and how I do it when I'm shooting normal videos. If I crank these lights up, and that's really tough because they're super bright at the moment, so now we'd have to adjust the shutter speed probably. There you go. So I'm adjusting between them. So you can see that if you want to get a much better picture, there are some tweaks that are necessary. During the day, I felt like it's given me a really good quality picture, but at night you need a better lighting and then a lot of tweaks. So I've now got the two key light airs set to about 40% brightness, which is quite bright. And I've obviously adjusted these settings. You can play around with it a lot more. The higher you go with the shutter speed, the less you can get out of it in terms of the video format. So it's 1080p 60 frames per second. You can choose to have it at 720p and lower, for example. And apparently adjusting the shutter speed higher can reduce it so it won't be 60 frames per second anymore. But we could maybe set this to 200, because that's roughly what I'd use when capturing footage for my main videos, and then that around 1/125. That looks pretty good still. So there's a lot of different sort of tweaks you can do, or you can just set it to automatically. You can see what a difference that's made. That actually is too bright now. If I take some of that brightness off, that maybe looks a little bit better. And each of these can be changed, and then you can save it by just clicking this button at the top, and then that then saves it into the memory on the camera, so that if you take the camera and use it on another device, for example a laptop or something, you'll remember those settings. Obviously the settings that I'm putting in here are for this camera in this setting, as in with this lighting at this angle, and so obviously if I go and use it in a different room with a different lighting setup, saving those settings might not be beneficial, but it is nice that you can do that with ease. So you do have the options to play around with a lot of other things in here. Another thing to talk about is the fact that the Elgato Facecam will also work with Stream Deck. So there is an app that you can pull in specifically for Facecam, and you can see that you can adjust it to set various settings on here. So you have adjust Facecam, reset Facecam, set Facecam, and I've set some of them up already on here on mine. in order to be able to demonstrate what that looks like. And basically what I've set up is what you'll see is some simple commands. I've set up my Stream Deck using the Stream Deck XL, but it'll work with any other Stream Deck. And what I've done is I've pulled in some of the settings so you can get an idea of what they do. So I have buttons here that allow me to adjust various things. For example, I can zoom right in. And the idea is you can make a dramatic zoom in and out. You could put that on your Stream Deck and then you can do that when you're streaming. You can also, for example, go through. So this is set in increments of 5. So the zoom goes in at 5 levels of 5, -5. You can also set so that you have a setting on here, for example, that you can see adjusts the compensation for the brightness. So this is obviously with the automatic settings set on, you'll notice there's a compensation setting here. So I can adjust this and press that and you'll see it's getting brighter or darker. So if I go down, I can make it darker. I can take out some of the brightness. If it's too bright, I can go down. I've gone way too far now and you can set it back. Another thing you can do is you can zoom right in, we can crank the brightness right up and just demonstrate what you can do. Then I've got a button here which allows you to just click reset and it sets everything back to what the default would be. And what you can see is now actually taken away all the settings that I had set up there. So it's actually far too bright. So if I turn that back down again, and I'd need to tweak some of these other settings because I've now lost some of the other things I did with the saturation. And so the lighting's not as good as it was. Maybe you want to zoom in a little bit more. And obviously you can drop in these settings in here and then you can choose from a selection of different ones. So we could do saturation in increments of 5, for example. So if we did find that we'd washed it right out, we could have the saturation come back in. You could adjust the brightness down. So you could get all these set up with ease to quickly adjust those without having to go into the software and adjust it, which is obviously a bonus, especially when you get into the streaming part of things. This is Logitech's Logicapture software, which is a way to control the camera in a number of different ways, but also it's designed to work as a sort of capture software, so you can capture directly on it. You'll see there's record buttons, for example, down the bottom. You can also set up sources, set up multiple cameras and do things like that. So the idea is to be able to stream straight from the software, or at least capture recordings straight from the software. You'll see that you can have switch sound, so it's kind of like a cut down version of OBS or something, but I've never used it that way and I doubt many people will, unless the focus is just on them. You wouldn't use it, for example, for gaming and things. But what you can do is you can adjust the quality. Now this is the default settings, the capture quality of that. And you can see that there are a number of options to change various things. For example, we can turn it on so it automatically corrects the lighting. Although to be fair, that's made it worse. So I'm going to turn it off again. There's image stabilisation option. So we can turn that on. And what that'll do is it will crop it in slightly, but it should reduce the wobble, which there probably shouldn't be if it's mounted well. Framing. Auto framing will then follow you around the room, which is pretty interesting. That's one highlight of it. If you like to have that sort of tracked movement, it could be a bit jarring, but you can also crop and move things around here too. So you have a lot of options for doing that. And we set that to default. There's an auto focus set, or you can set a specific focus area, which obviously that's not great. Where it is the focus, autofocus is preferable. But maybe you might find a need to tweak this. To be honest, a lot of the auto settings are pretty good. But you'll see you can go into image settings and we can add in some saturation maybe. We also have the ability to set anti-flicker. And there's a chroma key. And then you have some advanced settings. So you can flip it in different ways. Should look better from that angle. And then the other highlight that you'll see is that you can change the resolution. So it's 1080p and it's set to 30 frames a second as default, but you can set it to 60. So if you're going to be moving around a lot, or if you've got another source that's 60 and you want to have them matching, then you can do that. There's also microphone settings, because it does have the capture capability of having its own microphone, which the Facecam does not. However, as you'd think, the quality isn't that amazing. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to adjust the quality of your sources in here and of the camera itself. But as you can see, it requires some playing around in order to get it right and looking good. At the moment, it is early morning. I haven't got any lights on, but if I turn some lights on, maybe that might help. There we go. That looks a bit better. So I've now got two key lights on me shining at about 70% brightness, and you can see that the face is a lot clearer and the quality is a lot better. In a second, I'm going to capture footage in OBS and show them side by side to show what the difference is between the two. And here I am with the two cameras side by side. These are mostly in the default settings for each, with automatic settings set up for things like exposure and white balance, so you can sort of see the difference between the two. And this one is the Facecam and this one is the Streamcam, and you'll see just how those are adjusting as I'm talking to you and while I'm showing these things. I'm not making any changes in the settings at the moment, but you'll notice that, for example, the Streamcam looks a bit darker, and I have actually got the lights on in my room, and I'm going to crank up those to maximum. And now the Streamcam Facecam looks overexposed. So if I turn them off completely, you'll see how it handles the changes in light. Turn them back on, turn them down a bit. Actually looks a bit better. So that's probably about the right light level and a fair comparison between the two. And you'll see they've both got a good capture quality, very good capture quality. And I have played around with some of the settings, as you've seen in the software, to try and improve things like saturation, make the colors look a bit more realistic. Out of the box, I think you'll find that the Facecam has a better capture quality and better settings, but you can tweak both of them to look very good. What I want to demonstrate is a little bit of the autofocus and the fixed focal length of the Facecam, because that's one of the selling points. So here is a skull with lots of little skulls on it. And you'll see just how that sort of tracks and the focus. What you notice is, what I have noticed is the Streamcam's autofocus can be problematic. But you do have the ability to move around quite a lot in the frame, and it still looks good across the room. And then obviously sitting here as well, closer to the camera, I'm just about an arm's distance from each of them. They're roughly sitting next to each other, as you can see, and you'll see just the difference in how it's handling the light. I've got some natural light spilling in from my left, and I've got two key lights in front of me, and you can just see the capture quality. They're both superb. They're both 1080p. They both do 60 frames per second. There's some differences obviously in the sensor and the quality. Actually, side by side, what you'll notice is that the Streamcam sometimes looks superior and the Facecam sometimes looks superior. Just the way it adjusts. I think you're probably better off manually setting each of them, setting them up, rather than relying on automatic, because I just noticed, for example, just then, that the Streamcam tried to autofocus and actually ended up making me look a bit blurry, and that's something that the autofocus is a problem with. And obviously automatic exposure adjustment is equally problematic. So you do need to play around with the settings, but there are a lot of different settings to control to adjust the quality of them. And they're both fantastic cameras with really good capabilities. This is captured in OBS, and I have cut the size of the frames down and cropped them in. So I've actually made myself larger and cropped in. So the quality is slightly degraded perhaps because of the digital zoom, so just think about that as well. So for example, if I show you what the Facecam looks like set at the full size of the screen. Okay, so here we are with the Facecam on display, and I'm just capturing that now. just to show you just how much of the space you can capture with it. This is a wide field of view camera. You can get a lot of the room in, so you can see a lot of what's going on behind me, including my messy shelves, for example. But there is certainly an appeal to that, and the fact that you can focus such a big distance too. And here I am with the Streamcam set on its default settings of maximum size on OBS, and again you can see a lot of the room and a lot of the space within it to either side, so they both have a good range of field of view and allow you to see a lot of space and also to capture some really great footage. So this has been the Provoked Prawn. Hopefully you found this video interesting. Be sure to check out the links to the full reviews for a more detailed look at the software and other close-ups and more. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.